All right, I'm Luke, and I am here for ValorWell's Behind the Yellow, and I'm meeting with Matthew Philip Wee today of Vet to Industry. They are a organization out of Washington D.C., and yeah, I'm gonna open it up to you, Matt.
Yeah, thank you, Luke, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk about vets industry and then just exactly what we've been doing. Like you said, we're an organization of 503(c) located. I'm located in Washington D.C. Organization itself is right now based in Texas and it has stuff in Las Vegas. But our organization is a national-based organization. We were founded to provide a free resource library for the community, including active duty military members, to guard, reserve personnel, veterans, military spouses, and their families. And it just this organization, tries to we aim to provide those resources for free. What's out there, and we just want to be able to have everybody understand where things are at. Bring everything in a way that makes sense. And we've been constantly doing this for about 5 or 6 years. I started off as a community member, volunteer, and then director, senior director, and then have an opportunity to be a contractor. And now, to start off as a president this year, it's been an interesting journey so far of exactly what we do. But this organization, it in a sense, we establish those connections, share the knowledge, and identify opportunities for veterans and their families. And the key word for me is those connections. There's already a lot of great organizations out there that provide these services, the resources, everything we need out there, the education, housing assistance, mentorship, and programs. But we want to bring it together. We don't do everything, but we know how to bring people together and engage and find everything. So our main goal is to connect and engage and bring everybody around. So it's just one of those things that we try to do as an organization, is to bring everybody together, have an idea what they want to do. Because we can't do everything, but we just want to be able to support them in the right way possible.
Yeah. Well, I think that's very important because one of the things I do see in the veteran community is you have so many people out there that are doing different things, and you've got so much out there that's going on, and it doesn't seem to be very well connected. I've seen in some cases I've seen two nonprofits in adjacent cities that are providing the same things, and maybe even the exact same thing, actually in each other's areas. And they just had no idea. And I think what you're doing is so important for that, because there are so many of those opportunities that vets need to be aware of. And I don't know, like coming from military background myself, I was in the Army, and when you come out, they give you, they're like, hey, go to USA Jobs or look online, but there's not really a good way to find the actual organizations that do these things. And I think having a connection like that is very important. So tell me about yourself. Like, what got you, what was your journey into coming into working for vet industry?
Yeah, so it's definitely a long story, like a lot of veterans military, and just that right now I do serve as the president of Vets Industry Foundation, but a lot of that career started, I would say, 20 plus years ago. I joined the Marine Corps in July of 2001. Did not know what was going to go happening in a few months later, but then I retired in July of 2021 during COVID. But when I joined, I was went to the recruit depot in San Diego. When everything happened was September 11th. I was still in recruit training, what we called field fire. in the rifle range. So it was just all of a sudden things just started changing and changing. For my life, but throughout the progress, stayed in as for that 20 years. I wanted to be, stay that Marine. If you know Marines, we're very proudful of our service. We're very proudful of what we did, and we you could there's jokes about how you could tell a Marine, they'll just they'll tell you. So you don't even have to ask. I wear the pin a lot everywhere I go, but just showing that what's going on. But when July 2021 came, I was still trying to figure myself out. It was during the height of COVID. Like you talked about, the transition classes they give us, the 2 weeks, mine turned into online and WebEx. So just trying to figure it out from there. Then, researching all, and I was trying to do everything on my own. I didn't want to do much with anybody else because I was just trying to be that stubborn. I was trying to stay in longer and I couldn't because I wasn't able to pick up the next rank. But eventually, I just figured I had to, I had to leave. I had to take the opportunity, do the skill bridge, where I worked with an organization called Sales Platoon. We learned about sales. I was in the Hampton Roads area in Virginia Beach, so I was also to help out in the Veterans Employment Center there. About was all this stuff going on. I was still volunteering and figuring out was different veteran organizations, where I learned about 4 Block, Vets Industry, Travis Manning Foundation, Winter Warrior Project, Leadership Institute, and of course the Marine Corps League, and then many other things. And a lot of these organizations gave me the idea of what I wanted to do. And then talking to mentors through a platform called Veterati, I was able to find out about organization called Hill Vets, where I got to serve as a congressional fellow in the U.S. House of Representatives in Washington, D.C. Through another contact of mine, I was able to become a contractor supporting the Department of Defense as a senior government event program planner for the Ted Stevens Center. Then I used that experience, applied for a position as a civil service foreign affairs officer with the Department of State. And then when that ended last year in December, just more so because of I was in what they call the term position. It was only 2 years. They could have extended me, but of course there was funding issues. I was able to use the network and contact to become still a contractor as a program analyst supporting the Department of State. So a lot of this was done through networking, connections, and conversation, and believing in what I could have done. And without a lot of these organizations, with a lot of them, support, I don't think I don't know who what would happen. I mean, I was very stubborn before. I didn't want to leave. I mean, I think having these backgrounds, having these organizations, give me a sense of purpose that I was, trying to keep, and being myself. And I was still serving. I was volunteering, doing a lot of different things. And to this day, stuff was Vets Industry, Travis Manning, Leadership Institute, the Marine Corps League, and other organizations. And then being involved with, advisory councils in DC, and then a lot of it, changed personally too when I, met my girlfriend last year, and things are changing so to the best. And so a lot of it I'm trying to do that slowly it will change. So yeah, my journey has been different and changing as quickly as possible. I'm still trying to figure myself out because I do still work full time, and then stuff with Vets Industry. So I'm trying to, personally, just trying to be who I want to be. And I think having these organizations like Vets Industry, where I was able to grow and appreciate a lot of different things, made my outlook change.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. So yeah, you've kind of, sounds like, really been trying to find that right fit where you can do the most help and where you can constantly be serving. Was there a moment for you where you're like, hey, I'm wanting to go into nonprofit. I'm, rather than going into other organizations and stuff where maybe you could probably make more money, but where you said, hey, I believe in this, and I want to start working with nonprofits.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that has changed. Like I know before COVID and all that stuff, I still am in deciding, still have the entrepreneurial mindset. I have the business backgrounds, I have all this stuff that I want to own my own businesses and I can do that. And then when all this stuff happened, where I had the opportunity to work in the government and learn how things work in Congress, in the executive branch, it and then now working all these volunteer things was a nonprofit world where it makes me want to think to move towards gradually that way, just more so because I do feel a little different sense of fulfillment when I'm working a lot of the stuff with vested industry, putting together these these monthly networking circuit events where we bring people together for 2 hours, engaging them with employment opportunities, different organizations, different nonprofits, and just seeing how people interact and learn in the breakout rooms and learn from other people. And then of course the vertical industry events where we bring different industries. It could be from healthcare, the government, cybersecurity, sports, entertainment, entrepreneur AI, or anything, to give them an opportunity to see what's available. And then, of course, our other programming, there's our annual conference, our action summits, and then a lot of different things. So, yeah, I just from the journey of learning how things work, from the military to the government to doing the nonprofit stuff on the side, it definitely does make me think that it's where I want to be. And yeah, even though I could take a lot of these skill sets somewhere else and definitely make a little bit more than I do now as a contractor or even as breaking into the nonprofit space.
Nice. And one of the things that we like to talk about on here is the impact that you guys are making. And this is a thing that a lot of times you will see people that say, hey, we support these things, or this is something I care about, but they, whether they're doing anything to actually impact that, usually can boil down to, if this service stopped, would anyone be negatively affected? Would anyone even know that it wasn't there? And, for you guys' industry, like, if you had to boil down, like, hey, this is what we're doing, this is the impact that we have on the veteran community, like, how would you describe that?
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely I could definitely list off different statistics and different things, but I would just, mostly as somebody who started off as a community member to volunteer to take into leadership roles. I mean, this organization gave me a chance to learn about other organizations that I became a part of greatly. Like there was a lot of times where, personally to myself, when I learned about the Hillvets organization, it was through a friend who was part of this organization supporting it, and then hearing about them through another one. So they all interconnected. But there were times where even these events where I would hear from other people, other recruiters who were able to recruit somebody, a veteran from that event.
Mm-hmm.
Like some of myself, as a transitioning service member, I met different mentors constantly throughout a lot of what we've done, and then military spouses who volunteered with us for a little bit eventually got to their next opportunity. I met other nonprofit leaders, and then same thing was this we had different nonprofits and different groups created just from networking alone within this organization, and that's just coming from talking on the LinkedIn or Facebook, or even on our monthly networking circuit events where it was like 5 hours during the COVID time frame, but eventually dropped down to 2. Not everybody wants to stay online anymore. But I would say, without this organization, without the connections and the conversations in the community, there would be a lot of organizations and people's ideas that probably wouldn't have come to fruition because they didn't have a place to talk with each other. And there's
Yeah.
definitely examples of percentages and numbers and different groups and organizations I know of that was born out of these conversations. This organization that was founded, by an Air Force veteran, Brian Arrington in 2019. So learning from him and how things worked, drove me to learn. And then same thing was, learning from Carmen White and Joel, and Dr. Ablow and the rest of the team in Vesio industry. It's just been crazy how things worked out.
Nice. So what would you say, this is something I kind of think about a lot, is, some of these organizations that exist, and then, sometimes, especially for veterans, when they say, oh, well, the VA already provides that, or the military provides that. And sometimes in theory, it sounds great. Like when someone's leaving the military, and they give you, give you a sheet of paper with one or two organizations there, and then just say, hey, go Google it, go look places up. What do you guys, if someone said that, and I know it's not the same at all as having a trusted organization like your guys's that can actually refer people, but how would you address that?
Yeah, because like a lot of people know, like we've seen a lot of these organizations just on paper, and then you just put a description, and it doesn't do the same justice as somebody who's, or an organization that actually vetted it or actually brings those people to you in a sense, or have people that talked about the organization that they actually did it. Like you can list everything on paper. You can send them an email with everything but if you don't talk about it and don't explain that exactly what the organization is about, and give them the opportunity to see them in action, it doesn't do much. It doesn't really do much of it doesn't hit much of a dent. I mean, for that person, because it's just another list.
Right.
And I've seen that a few times with they have the right idea. They want to provide you the right organizations, the right information, but sometimes they don't tell you exactly what it's about. They just, here's a list, just figure it out. But a lot of times a lot of these organizations that we have listed, I either our volunteers, our staff will research a little bit more about each organization, vet them as in, we look at the website, we go to a few of their events, we do partnerships with with different organizations that are trusted. Like there's a lot of organizations I've been reaching out to that I have a personal hand in attending their stuff and becoming part of their network and their organization, just so I know exactly what's provided. And it's just something I know that my team can do, is that we will research, organize, and figure things out just through the right processes. But yeah, it's more than just giving a list. We partner with one of our sister organizations, Post Veterati, to provide mentorship. And we do those calls. We talk to the person and try to figure out exactly where they're going to, and then give them an idea of what's helpful and what's out there.
Nice. So sounds like there's a good element of this that is about trust, rather than having just going out and trying to find all these places on our own, which on its own is just a lot to do. But if they can come to another organization that is already vetted these places and is able to clearly tell you, yes, this place will do this, they'll help you with that. I think that's a big impact, because the veteran community is nothing if not a pretty untrustworthy one. There's a lot of paranoia, and one of the things I find is that a lot of people that are veterans, when someone's trying to help them out, uh, a lot of times it doesn't come across that way.
Yeah.
A lot of times people deal with that, and when someone's being nice to them, it feels like they're trying to get you to lower your guard or something like that. And having an organization where they can go through and just say, "Hey, I trust you. Please let me know where I need to go for this." That would be a big benefit. So, another question I have, and this is something that I've talked to a lot of people about, is the transition coming out of the military, where when you're in, you're not really encouraged to make your own decisions about anything when you're in the military. In fact, a lot of times you're kind of punished for making your own decision, no matter how small. And I was talking to someone the other day about how they were saying they feel like that impacts veteran homelessness and a lot of things, because they come out of the military and they're just like, man, what do I do? And now they're being told to make all their decisions. And for a lot of them, where it's like, man, if I make the wrong decision, someone's going to die. So they will, in a lot of ways, it's like, man, if I sit there and do nothing, if I just stand by, that feels safer for them than going out and risking making decisions there. And I think that's where, another thing that your organization provides, that kind of platform where if someone comes in and says, "Hey, what do I do? Who do I see?" rather than them having to process through that and deal with the stress of what if I pick the wrong thing, you guys are providing that education and that direction for them. Do you feel like that plays into this at all?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely does play a lot of it. We're going to mentor the veteran and their families of exactly what's out there. We started, a lot of our events, like when we started off, was back then was, I think, 5 hours of trying to do, or we bring the recruiters, the organizations, and just have them talk about it. Like I said, and it is that we're trying to provide provide them the direction they need, but not force feed them anything. Just give them, just help them out, because, like you said, a lot of times that young service member, and I could, definitely speak to the Marines. As an administrator, when I was in, one of my responsibilities as an admin chief was doing a lot of stuff for their transitioning out, where I had to see their plans and see what they're doing and engaging them, talking with their career planners, making sure they head to the transition assistance program or transition readiness seminar, depending on which branch or military you're in. Military organization, and a lot of times those young service members didn't have the right plans, and I kind of wasn't able to help as much because I didn't really know what to expect. I was given a role where I had to teach them exactly how to transition out, when I myself was never transitioning out, and then never really had to attended a few classes. But that transition class you get at that's what, 2 weeks or a day. Yeah, teaches you a lot of different things, but a lot of it too is stuff you can use when you're in service. And by the time you get those classes, you're already leaving, and then there's a little. I mean, so it does help. If it's just mostly to what I understand, that it's something we can do is find ways to improve it. Not, I mean, you don't have to change everything, but ways to educate, because we do a lot of these annual trainings and stuff. I know one of my thought processes is, if we could do all these annual trainings when you're active duty, or reservist, you should be able to do the tap as something that's quick and be ready. But yeah, what we do is bring the information to that service member. They can reach out through a website or LinkedIn or whatever, or events, and we just create, we give them the information that they need to put in the right direction. As somebody like myself, or things were happening all around me, the COVID, and I had to figure things out and moving in a different direction and pivot constantly. And I'm still changing directions of where I want to go. A lot of it does have to do with like the mindset of the individual and thinking that nobody's going to do it for you. And that's something I was still learning. It's like I had to figure out how to do my own, do taxes, which became even harder. Then medical, dental, and then all the copay stuff and all the simple things as paying rent and seeing your money go somewhere else when you're so used to seeing tax-free money when you're active duty and things automatically being taken care of. So yeah, it's providing people the right direction, to point them in the right direction without force feeding them and give them the opportunity to have the mindset that they have to take action on their own and not just rely on everybody else.
Yeah, there's so much there that you're talking about, and I think a big part is that, like you said, all those little decisions, all those little things that we have to do. And it's interesting because these are the things that a lot of people don't, they just like, oh, you just have to do that. But when you're in the military, it's amazing how much, again, like, one, you don't have to make your own decisions. It's like, hey, I'm going to wake up, I'm going to put on this exact same outfit every morning, show up at 6 to do PT, then you go shower, shave, and come back in this exact same uniform at this exact time, at this exact spot every single day. And, even like when you're deployed, like I remember we were deployed and we were on a small outpost, and yeah, it sucked, but at the end of the day, man, I had someone say, hey, get up, come here. We're going here. Cool. I'm just going to follow you along. And, if you're hungry, you go to the big pile of boxes and look for a bag of MREs and find one of the same 8 to 10 meals and hope to God there's something besides the veggie omelet left.
Definitely didn't appreciate those.
Right. But it's like, those are and it's funny because we came back and I remember telling people that, the only things we had to deal with over there was people shooting at us or watching for IEDs, which, yes, those are big things, but it's very few. And when you come back and you've got all these little things that you're having to juggle, and it's like, this is stressful. This is hard. And especially when it's been ingrained in you that any decision you make can cost someone's life.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you've got that mentality that, man, any decision can be the factor in someone living or dying. And now you've got a whole bunch of decisions every day. It's like, man, this is a lot. And I don't think a lot of people really notice that. And even when, like you said, they do the transition classes, but at the end of the day, we're dealing with habit formation. And if you've got people that have had a habit beaten into them so hard for years, and then you say, all right, now just don't follow that habit anymore. Well, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
You put them in the class and say, this is what you do, but if they don't have practice in it, then it's never going to actually sink in.
Yeah.
And the other thing that you mentioned that I found interesting is you're talking about leading these transition courses. when you yourself hadn't actually transitioned out of the military. You hadn't experienced that. So, you were kind of teaching theory, but without the reality of how it truly works. What was that like when you were in to be trying to teach that stuff to people?
Yeah, so like I said, one of my duties, the admin chief, and then just sign off the paperwork that people got from the transition classes, and then read what they wrote and read their plans and make sure everything was correct. And it was, at first, it was just, I didn't really think too much about it because I was, I just made sure everything was in the box, to making sure they hit what I was taught from what I was, given when I got that responsibility. They gave me a small class, but it didn't feel good now thinking about it. I mean, at first, because when you're the admin chief, you're that staff NCO, the staff sergeant, and you're seeing, last corporals, PFCs, private first classes, sergeants, and even peers and seniors alike, and telling them, hey, this is your plan. You got everything in check here. All right, you attended the class. It didn't feel like I was giving them the right advice at the time that I would do now, where I would provide them a different direction. Like, hey, see this organization, they do this. Are you talking about your resume? All right, there's this AI system now they can use that will help them curate everything they did in the military. There's also these organizations that will take your information and build your resume, and then the skill bridge program. Don't sleep on that thing. It's learning about the skill bridge, learning about these opportunities that are out there, and then of course, when you're active duty, you have all these education and training, things you could do. You got the cool programs, you got all this, you got your tuition assistance that you maybe not think about as active duty or reservist, but when they teach you that stuff when you're taking the transition classes, you're like, well, thanks. I got like
Right.
2 months to a year, and now I'm learning about all this stuff I could take advantage of. But majority of the time when you're doing a year out, that's mostly like senior folks, retirees or people that have been in for a while when they do the classes. Because if you're talking about your junior enlisted, maybe they got 3 or 4 months, not even.
Yeah. And even that, it's like really up until the last couple weeks.
Yeah.
We're not getting, it's like, hey, you're getting ready to transition out, but you're still expected to do everything because we own you. And if we have time, you can go do something. But yeah.
Especially the ones who get injured or the legal cases, sometimes we don't give them the opportunity to take advantage of this stuff because they're held up on all this legal or medical. So a lot of it was like that, just learning how to be that admin chief, learning how the things work. But then looking back now, you can't really change what you did, but you can definitely improve your techniques and your tactics and what you know and how to. And that's why sometimes when I see these service members, I kind of remember back, and then going through the COVID time frame too as well, where I had to force myself in a change and eventually had to retire because I hit the service limits as a Marine, so I had to figure that out.
So what are some of the biggest challenges that you see for veterans when they're transitioning out of the military and getting into civilian life? And I would say, what are some of the biggest challenges you see like right away, and then maybe like a year or so later, those things that kind of hit a little after?
Yeah, I'd say the biggest challenges that hit the service member, in the military community when they leave active duty or reserves is just being able to network and communicate what they want. We have all these skill sets, we have everything given, but we never had a lot of times opportunities, depending on what you're doing, to write a resume or network for a job in a way that makes sense in the civilian world. Because networking and our resumes, all that stuff is very different in the military. So if you've been in, 1 to 20 years, you may not have the opportunity to learn how employment works, where you got to negotiate for your salary and then understand that there's tons of different opportunities, and you have the choice to pick what you want and to find your meaningful work. You don't have to take the first thing that comes your way. But you're still going to figure yourself out when you're leaving. Some say you have that 3 to 4 years of trying to figure yourself out, and you also have 3 to 4 different type of jobs before you find the best one that fits. And it doesn't matter how long you stayed in.
Yeah.
Like you said, you're ingrained to do the job. You're ingrained that it's life and death situation, regardless of your military occupational specialty, your job field. Like, even as an administrator, we were taught, things mattered. If we make a mistake, that Marine we made a mistake on could be their pay, it could be their awards, it could be training, that they're going to feel the brunt of it. And then when we make those corrections, we make the corrections, but we don't know the impact. And I could say, when you fix things, sometimes it does help. Like, going back, an example of, when I was active duty and I took care of Marines and found ways to make sure they were immediately promoted, you could see the joy in their face, but they went through hell because they had to do all this extra work that they shouldn't have to get promoted. So yeah, it's, in the beginning, you're not going to have somebody do that for you. In outside
Right.
the military, you're going to have to learn how to learn how things work. We can help you create the resume. We can help you network. We can help you engage. We can help you build the community. But if you don't do it yourself, nothing's going to happen. And just learn that things shift, things change, and you have to rely on your family, your network, your friends, and don't try to do too much at once. I'm an example of that, where I still try to do so much because I feel like I'm able to, but it does take away. And then just take advantage of opportunities that come your way, because you never know what's going to happen. I mean, I just started dating my girlfriend last year, and it definitely changed my mindset of what I wanted to do. Of doing all this stuff is important. Volunteering it is, but it's not everything in the world. So yeah, it's in a big nutshell. When you're getting out, it's a lot of if and thens, and trying to do your own thing, learning how a budget works,
Yeah.
and your resume, and small things that you never know you would have to do. But yeah, that journey is still what I remember.
The budgeting thing, I think, is so interesting for especially soldiers who came in right out of high school and they've never learned to budget outside of military budgeting. And it's interesting because I've seen so many of these guys that again, like, they graduated high school, they never had more than a couple $100 in their bank account, and then maybe they go to basic, they've got all this money in there, then they get deployed, they come back, they've got all this. And it's amazing seeing how quick they can just burn through all of that. And the finance culture in the military, at least on an Army base, I don't know if it's the same in the Marines, but you see a lot of these guys that would, basically, like, they get their paycheck and they just burn through it in a weekend partying. And it didn't matter at that time. It's like, hey, I can go to the DFAC and get breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I don't have to pay for that. I'm on post, especially our infantry unit. It's like we're doing stuff all day, every day. So it's like, I don't even need a vehicle. I just ride to formation and back with people. And people just, it's a good community where you can bum a ride from someone, or if they need money for whatever else, hey, I got you here, or I got you there. And it's not like, it works. It's not an issue there. And then they get out and it's like, oh no, that doesn't that doesn't work. Like you said, you have to manage your phone bill and all these different things, and which again sounds nuts, but in a way I look at it as, kind of like we have these big problems in the military that we have to deal with, but not as many of them. And it's like, man, you give me 2 bowling balls and try to juggle them versus 20, 30 tennis balls. I'll take the bigger ones every day. And it becomes very challenging for people to adapt to that because, again, especially these younger ones, where the young single soldiers that's all they've ever known, and they come out, and even something like, hey, go to the VA. And I was talking to someone a while back that he was getting out, and I told him, hey, just go up to the VA, start getting set up with stuff. And he's like, okay, like, when do I go? And I was like, anytime. He's like, okay, but like when? Like, when do I go? Who do I talk to? Is there? And it took me a second to realize, like, oh yeah, just telling him go whenever it feels right, it doesn't work. and it was fun. It was so funny because I was like, hey, just like anytime. And he just couldn't like get it. And then I told him, like, okay, you're getting out on this day, that morning, 8 a.m., go to the VA. And he was like, okay, I can do that. And
that makes sense.
Yeah, it was just so funny. It's like, why couldn't you do that? Oh, because how you've been conditioned. You need someone to tell you how to do it. Yeah, and it's big. So with what you guys are doing, I get what you're saying. Like, you can't fix how it worked before. Have you guys done anything or been able to do anything to work with any of the branches of the military on kind of coordinating a better system for transitioning them out of that?
Yeah, we're definitely since I was able to become president of Vessel Industry. Even before that, I was just connecting with lots of organizations, talking to them, to the Marine Corps, the Navy, and different services. Just how things work. So I still need to follow up, of course, bring them to their attention that we're trying to do. But one of the events that we're working on, other than our monthly networking circuit events that we have, and then our industry verticals and our sister platform was Posetarati, is what we called the Western Industry Action Summit. We're going to be doing this here in October 22nd and 24th in the University of District Columbia in Washington, D.C. And we're going to focus on the three major issues that affect the veteran community, which is employment, homelessness, and suicide. But what we're going to be doing is not trying to bring this is what you have to do. We're just going to come up with. We're trying to talk to these organizations, these nonprofits, different employers, community leaders, research educators, advocates, and different stakeholders, and engage with them and bring up with actionable items, what we're actually doing, and try to figure things out. We're going to do these 3 online events associated with the Action Summit, and then work all this information together, bring everybody together, and eventually use an AI platform where we can gather all this information and just try to figure out different actionable steps and ideas. We're not trying to solve everything, but we're more trying to have people think and engage and take action on their end, what they can do for them, for those organizations. We're trying to figure out what's doing well. If there changes, and I could say, coming from 2001 to 21, things are definitely getting better, and and definitely it kind of took a step back during COVID because we were trying to figure out how virtual stuff works. So nobody knew exactly. We were still learning how. And then these past 5 years later, I think everybody's understanding how how being virtual, being in an online environment is getting better. I've seen different events where they do a hybrid approach. Being in Washington D.C., we have a ton of these events to different things. So this action summit is something completely different where we're bringing these questions, and then having everybody take actionable items and steps, and the conversations and the community and that type of stuff, which what we're known for is just the connections and conversation. Because a lot of times you go to these networking events and you attend all these panels and engagements, and things happen on the outside. When you go into people's tables, it may not happen watching the talk at a panel. So we're trying to do something that's in that way where we have people engaged together and not just focus on a lot of the things that people want to do. We just want to be able to take those topics, have actionable outcomes, and see what we can bring together. Because the term, we're trying to get it done, but not get everything all done at once, because you can't. We just want to make sure everybody builds those connections, builds the communication aspect without a lot of the being talked to, but we'll have a few of those, of course. We'll have an opportunity for people to talk about certain things, but we want to have people engaged and take action. And then there are times, I set up meetings with different organizations and different nonprofits and companies, and definitely start to reach out more once I get I feel more comfortable exactly in this role, reaching out to the services and the departments such as the VA and Department of Defense, Department of War. So it's a lot of a learning curve. We're trying to put together a lot of different things in actionable thing, and to take action and to communicate and engage and have that community and resources available. So it's slowly getting there. We're taking what we need to get done to do what we need to make things work, to help prevent where I feel like back in the past, I didn't really do anything. But I'm like you said, I can't go back, but I can take those next steps, and I still feel that I want to do that. And that's why you have this calling sometimes, and sometimes you got to make it work. And it's not really, it can be scary because you don't really know. And that's what people feel when they leave. They want to be able to know what path they can take, because it can be difficult. And we're trying to make sure we don't have that difficulty as much as we can. But we can't do everything for them, but we can definitely point them in the right direction with the right community connection and communication.
Nice. And so you guys are helping with a lot of things. You're connecting people with a lot of different areas. What areas of help do you feel like are the ones that you get the most need for?
Yeah, so as I said, like we're an organization that provides the resources, but we also have an idea what people need. We can provide them with like I said, the resources, and that just points them in the right direction. They give us an idea what they want, but we also have the ability to provide them that small mentorship and then career and education and events. But a lot of times we've seen it is just people understanding how to do their the elevator pitches of being able to explain who they are. And that could be just talking with their resume or talking about themselves in a 30-second environment where and you're right. We're not really built for that in the beginning, because we're always taught, just to, this is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen next. And you take care of this. And now you have to say, this is, my name, what my skill sets are, what I want to do, where I want to go, and I hope to bring this to you in a way that makes sense. And the resume is another piece where trying to bridge everything in 2 pages or 1 page in a language that makes absolute sense to the to the civilian community, because there's words that don't make sense that we use. And if, yeah, you can stay in the government, but the people in the government sometimes won't understand what the resume talks about,
Right.
even though they may be serving in an organization that should know it, but you're not going to have everybody that understands that language. So it's just translating that information and utilizing the tools that are out there, especially, you got AI, you got these services that are organizations that, can bridge a gap. And we want to make sure everybody has the right tools in place. And we know everybody's not going to use these tools a certain way, but we just want to give them the opportunity to have it available.
Yeah.
And we just provide them in the right direction. But yeah, it's a lot of stuff that we work on in the breakout rooms, is just, the elevator pitches, the resumes, networking, and just how to do things, financially, or how things work. Because like you talked about how, you're active duty, you work around, you can, you can spend your money, and you still have a place to live because the money's still being taken out. So
Yeah.
and it's just like myself learning how things work in that aspect was different, but I took advantage and was able to get out of my comfort zone and get where I need to. And I'm still growing. I'm still trying to figure things out. And and unfortunately, you're never going to be settled unless you're settled. And
Yeah.
it just takes a while.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the resume writing thing. That was a big thing when I was transitioning out. I think it was a real moment for me when I realized how different this was going to be and how challenging. And again, coming from an infantry background, I did my resume here, and they're like, okay, you want to be specific about what you did. Don't be super vague and everything. And then I put specifics on there, like, hey, I participated in combat missions, did this, stuff, that. They're like, oh no, you don't, you don't want to say that. That looks bad. Say you worked as a team to accomplish, various missions and things, and it was a moment that I realized, like, wow, so like I need to hide that part. This part that the military has beaten into me was so important, and this is my only purpose and value. And now all of a sudden it has no value and needs to be like hidden. And I think that's very hard for a lot of people to figure out how to go into the civilian sector, like with that, and having someone that they can come to and say, hey, like, you've left the military, you've been in this environment, but you get it. You understand what I'm going through. And being able to help with that, I think that's so good. And not just for like a 30-minute, sit down and tell you what you're doing wrong and then send you on your way.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, the habit part, how these things are brought in. And it's so different. Also, like you said, the communicating to people, and not just the words that we use, but how we communicate. The directness is often very, very difficult. When I got out of the military, my first job was in retail management, which is a terrible idea for anyone. Everyone you talk to is like, hey, do this. And very simple things. It's like, hey, like, this is, you need to be here at this time, and here's the uniform, like a work shirt and black slacks and tennis shoes. Like, pretty simple. And you have people show up at whatever time they want, looking however they want, and it's like, oh, Well, why is it that big of a deal? Like, it's because you were told to do this. It's a simple thing, you know. And you got people that go like, oh well, like it's not the military, and oh that was always so hard to hear when it's like, oh it's not the military. Like you're right, it's not the military because you could leave, and like if it was the military, I'd be keeping you here all night doing up downs, and you couldn't do anything about it. Um, and it's just so it's very different in how we communicate. You know, I remember there was one guy who came in, and I'd been there for a few months, and this guy, it was so funny because our general manager came up to me, and we were getting like swamped, and he goes, well, where's this guy? I was like, I don't know. And he goes, well, is he like he's scheduled today, right? And I go, yep. He goes, did you reach out to him? I said, no, I didn't. Like I didn't, because if I call him or I text him and he answers, I'm going to lose it, because there's no reason he shouldn't have called or texted. But he's late, so it's like I was like, you know what? I'm hoping that he is like in a ditch somewhere and broke his fingers and is not able to act to text me and say I won't be there. Like that's what I'm convincing myself. And the guy shows up an hour and a half late, walks in with a box of donuts, and says, like, I watch him walk in. He goes and gets his headset thing. He calls up, hey guys, sorry I'm a little late, but it's no big deal. I'm going to stay an hour and a half later to make up for it. And I stopped and got donuts. And everything in me at that moment was like, oh, this is it. Like I started to go back there. Luckily, this guy, like general manager, grabs me by the collar. He's like, go home, get out of here. I was like, no. I was like, I'm good. I'm going to handle this. He's like, no. No. And it was just such a different mentality dealing with that. It's like you have people that are like, hey, I just do, come in whenever I feel like it. And they decide if it's a big deal or if it's not. And then I went into healthcare, and I found out that most hospitals, they deal with so many people like not calling in that they'll actually schedule extra. And like, because we had a day where the place was full, every room was filled, and they had someone cancel, or they canceled them and said, hey, don't come in. And I was like, oh, that's weird. Why is that? And they go, oh, well, we overstaff because so many people call in. So we just, today happened to be a day where everyone showed up, so we didn't need them. And I'm sitting here going, wow, like we were really accommodating that. And, I know there's got to be some balance between, like in the military, if you do something wrong and they, all hell comes down on you. But it was such a big, dramatic change. So you go from one extreme where it is, I would call almost violent accountability, to almost none. And for people to try to navigate that and like ease into it can be incredibly difficult for a lot. And I think that's why it's so important there's organizations like you guys out there that are helping to facilitate and ease that transition for these veterans. So yeah, I want to, we're getting close to time here, so I want to open up, see if there's anything you have to say, anything more, and kind of what you would like people to to know about your organization and how they can get involved.
Yeah. So yeah, again, thank you for all this as well. Then hearing the story about when you had to work in the customer service I was so like I said, I did I worked as a fellow in Congress, so I had to do a little bit of that, dealing with different personalities, learning how things work. But I also decided to take on another role and still do it sometimes as a part-time usher at Keppel One Arena in
Mhm.
Washington D.C. And these arenas, you do these usher roles. You do the simple things as checking tickets, making sure people in the right seats. Not everybody standing in the aisle, the fire coordination, giving advice on where people would go. And in hindsight, it's not that hard of a task. But when you're given the roles, and I was fresh off retiring from the Marine Corps, a staff NCO, just trying to figure myself out. Taking that role too wasn't at the time the best because I had to control how I reacted to certain things, and personality wise, I'm quiet. I'm the nature. I'm not that sometimes confrontational, but there's a few times where guests or even other ushers would push your buttons, where a guest didn't want to get off the middle of the stairwell and they wanted to dance even though you're not allowed to, and you give them multiple warnings, and you're trying not to knife hand them, and you're trying to control yourself where you're not going to get yourself in trouble. And then the main thing you can do is just call the supervisor, but in the back of your mind it's like, I don't need to call a supervisor. I can handle this. It's not that
Right.
hard. And there were a few times where I was see myself, somebody yell at them because they were yelling at me, and so I was like being covered because they were doing that to me. But a lot of times I had to learn how to control my anger and my want to treat them as they were in the military, which they're not Marines, and they're
Yeah.
people that think they can get away with things because they feel comfortable in arena or these venues where they treat the staff sometimes a certain way. So yeah, learning how that work definitely gave me an opportunity to see how things are, that not just in the government sector where I was trying to handle it myself, or the nonprofit space, and seeing how a lot of times it can be, or it's just not just civilians, but sometimes the military service members and the veterans and the families. We can have that as humans, have that sense of entitlement. We think everything should be given to us. We think everything should be handed, and it's not that way. I mean, it's but also trying to learn when you're in this type of space, especially in the leadership capacity, where you try to mentor and teach them and bring them in the right direction, where you're talking to like that guest at the arena and making sure they understand, hey, this is why we have to check your ticket, and this is why you need to sit in your right spot, and you can't dance in the middle of the stairwell, and you can't smoke in this place because there's these set of rules. And the same thing was the veteran and their family, that hey, this is what you have to do to be successful, and you're not going to have everything handed to you because not everybody's going to believe in that, and you're going to have to do everything the right way. But yeah, but in terms of back to the vets industry and then how things are going, and we like I said, we do these monthly networking events, these 2-hour events, to give them a chance to learn and engage and just have that conversation and build that community. And the same thing as these industry verticals, where we're giving them a chance to learn how uh, the different opportunities out there, and we have different education and professional development opportunities. We learn from our partners, but this organization was built, like I said, as as a way for us to continue to support, to continue to engage in, and it's a very community conversation connected type of organization where it's all about the volunteers and the engagement and just understanding how things are out there. We cater to a lot of significant population, and we try our best with the tools we have to be low to lean. And we're have the opportunity to be blessed by a sponsor of Signal Health Group that was able to provide us the resources we need, and the small team we have, and doing this as a part-time thing for myself, uh, and then continuing to volunteer with other organizations, that we're out here to to bring everything together. We grew from a single site repository of information to an organization that partners and engages and connects and has that communication with many other organizations and people and resources. So we are out here to support you guys, support everybody, and we try to be that way. We try to do the best we can with what we have, and we just want people to know that you know to utilize what's out there. And I could give them too is just utilize what you have. Be thankful of that's what's out there. There's a ton of organizations. I know that, and we're part of that. We're part of that many, but research us. If you want to volunteer, we have volunteer opportunities in many ways. But research the vesting industry, what we do, of our history in in our Eventbrite and in our YouTube pages and our social medias, and see if we bring a value to you. Because I know we do, just because of my experience as a community member, to a volunteer, to a manager, to a director, to contractor, to now president. And I could say this wholeheartedly. I did not think I was going to be in this type of space now. I didn't think I would be on podcasts or engaging with people in live networking conferences, and because I didn't see myself as somebody who as as a leader in that space. I saw myself as somebody, as a Marine, a staff NCO, and I know that well. And I was trying to be more in the business, in the government, and type of, but seeing how this type of stuff helped me grow, where I was able to to be where I'm at now, and then just and it's amazing. And you can't. And one thing is, you can't do everything alone. And that means have your network, have your family, and have your somebody, your significant other. Just like for myself, when I finally was dating my girlfriend last year, it definitely pointed me in a different direction. And even having my faith, as a Catholic in God and the community and all that type of stuff, brings me to where I'm at now. And then I take everything I have and just try to compose it in my mind and to make it work. And the last piece of advice I will give to is, don't try to do everything. Don't try to be everywhere at once. And I'm still guilty of that. And I'm still trying to learn that you can't be everywhere. You can't learn everything, even though you love to learn. I love to do all that stuff. It's just you can't. And you're eventually going to burn out. And there's a few times where that was going to happen to me. But after stepping back a little bit and engaging, I was able to get that. But I'm still learning how that works. I'm still processing everything. It's only been 5 years since I retired, and I was in the Marine Corps for 20 years. And relationship-wise, I was just still learning everything, how it all works. And that's what I could say is it's for yours for the taking out there in this world.
Nice. I like that a lot. You can't do everything alone. You can't do everything on your own. And I think that's something that people who have a true heart for helping really struggle with, because you see someone who's needing something, they're needing help, and you just want to help. You want to go do that, and it's hard to sometimes not overextend yourself. So with that, Matthew, thank you so much for giving me your time today. I think this is awesome, and I'm really excited for our viewers to get to hear about your organization, and hopefully this helps people get connected to the right places and get you guys some more support. So
thank you.
You have a wonderful rest of your day. And for everyone else, we'll see you back on Beyond the Yellow for our next episode.
Thank you.